Welcome, everyone. This is a little video comparing the Tesla Model 3P to the Tesla Model S75D. In particular, didn't think I was going to make this video, and I'm a little bit surprised by the results of the two, and thus I decided to do this video. So, give you some background. I've had a Model 3P for about 5 weeks, and last week, basically, I had to put it in for service. Just the side view mirrors would not go back to their previous position when I came out of the easy entry mode, and no one could fix it, over the air and all that. So they took my car, and it was Thursday before Thanksgiving, and I got it back Friday after Thanksgiving. So just a touch over a week. I didn't have my car, and I was pleasantly surprised that they gave me a 75D as a loaner. And the last time I was in a Tesla and the last time I was in a Model S was 4 or 5 years ago. I test drove a Model S up in Brea, California at the store. And it was I believe it was a 70, just a 70. There was no P or D models back then. Or maybe D was just coming out. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was by far the best car I've ever driven. And, I'm a technology guy. I'm also a minimalist kind of person. So all that spoke to me. It was just amazing. And I've been a Tesla fan ever since. So finally, I pulled the trigger, like I said, about 5 weeks ago, got a red, white interior, premium, the whole deal, Model 3P, which is obviously a dual motor, long range battery. Most of you probably know that. So when I had the chance to drive the loaner, I was really excited. I mean, I was a little bit surprised, actually. I thought maybe my first thought was they're going to give me either a Model 3 or possibly, frankly, even an ICE car. I've heard that some dealerships, some service centers had to do that, but it was a Model S. And I was excited. And already within probably an hour, but definitely by the next day, full day, I should say, of driving, I was not unimpressed, but I wasn't impressed. I was, again, not let down, but I wasn't amazed. And so I want to go through a little bit of that. Now, I will tell you that I think most of the things I'm telling you, if not all, are pure opinion and perspective and taste. Where with the very same data and the same experiences, someone with different tastes and different opinions and different perspectives will come up with a different conclusion. Be the first to admit that. So this is just, in fact, my views on it. So I wanted to just kind of make this video and give a few lists of bullet points, I should say, about between the two things I liked and disliked. And most of them, if not all of them, are pretty minor as well. And they'll probably change in both cars. But here it is. So in terms of the pros on the 3, like these are some of the things that I liked, and a few of them I even missed when I went back to the 3. The first one is I like the air suspension. Or I should say the idea of the air suspension. I'll get to that in a moment. But I like the idea that you can raise and lower the car, and that it can even raise itself and lower itself based on your GPS coordinates as it learns, where there's curbs, or when you manually do it over and over again, it'll do it automatically. 2, I like the door handles. I like the auto presenting. I've heard, it could be a rumor, that each of those handles costs $1,000. So obviously that's something you're not going to see on a mid-range car like the 3. But it's nice. It looks good. It's clever. When I go back in, it's nice because everything's smooth. I also like the idea then the door's unlocked. So I have a visual indicator when it's in, the door's locked, and when they're open, the door's unlocked. There's no indicator like that on the 3, as far as I can tell. There's no way to just look at it and know if it's locked or not. I like the sunroof, though I heard that's going away. And I really like the auto open trunk. A lot of these things I like about are almost silly little things, right? Probably the air suspension is not quite silly, but the other ones are things that they could, I think, without too much trouble, add to the 3. But the auto open trunk. Now in my 3, I have an auto open frunk with some modifications. You can see another video I've done. So I don't mind it on the front because I use the frunk actually more than the trunk, but I do use the trunk, and it is nice to be able to have it just auto open without you having to lift it. First world problems, right? So now here's some of the cons. Might surprise you. The first one is the door handles. I love the auto presenting part of the door handles, but for my taste, they start too slow in the right or the wrong circumstance. And where I found, it took me a while to do trial and error, but where I figured it out is if I'm approaching the Model S from the rear and going to either rear passenger sides. In other words, I'm not going to the front of the car, I'm going to the rear. So I'm coming up behind the car quickly, and by the time I put my hand to where the handle should be so I can open it and throw my laptop bag in, it's not there yet. It's a split second. It's not a long delay, but in my mind automatically goes to, if I was back in my Model 3, I would have been able to open it. I would have by now already had my handle, or my hands, push the thumb in and put my hand in the handle. I've already been opening it by now. Now, again, first world problem, super minor, but enough that I would notice it every time. Whereas if I'm going to the front, the driver's seat, if I don't have to go put my laptop bag in, then by the time I got to the front, it knew something was happening. The connectivity was there, and the handles would start coming out. That by the time I reached for it, it was there. It was just when I came from behind and going to the first door handle, which is the rear passengers, it wasn't quite quick enough. It was enough that after a week, it annoyed me that I was actually looking forward, because I used the back seat a lot, open it up and throw stuff in, close it, and go to the front. So it was something that in some ways bugs me more than the rear trunk, because I open up the rear passenger door more frequently than the trunk. And when you do it a couple times a day and you kind of have to wait a beat, it's, probably something that could be fixed in software, who knows? So I'm mixed feelings about the handles. The idea of the handles and the way they work and the fact that they come out, it's nice, and they go back in. And I really like the idea that you can see, you can visually know that the car is unlocked or locked by the way the door handles are. But the quickness in the rear, not upset, but a little bit frustrating. I like well, let me do it this way. Okay, I don't like the indoor door handles. I didn't think I'd like the push button idea of the Model 3. And I've, of course, seen 100 videos on it, and people talked about it before the 3 really came out, or at least was very popular. So I knew what to expect when I bought my car. But after a couple of days of getting used to that, man, I love it. I give them props for having the courage to do something like that. That I think, in my view, a lot of people, when they first heard about it or saw it, were kind of bagging on it. I wouldn't say I was bagging on it, but I was a little bit trepidatious. It's like, why do a button and just have a handle? Just right. It's awesome. It's when you get the movement down where you put your hand in where the handle is, so to speak, and you just push it with your thumb, and then in one move, pop your elbow out. Hand goes in. And it becomes a smooth move. Frankly, it's like I know it sounds stupid, and it sounds like it is awesome. It's just I can't. Those of you that have a 3, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, it might sound silly, but I'm telling you, it's the best way I've ever had the way a door open. It's just, once you get used to that, thumb goes on the button, elbow pops out just a little bit. It's just one smooth move. And I don't like them so in comparison, I don't like them in the Model S. It's this big handle that feels like going backwards. It's a handle, it's mechanical. You got to kind of put your hand over there and dig it in, pull it out, and then you got to give more force than I feel in the 3. Huge steering wheel compared to the 3. The 3 is like a sports car. I'm going to get to that in a second. And it's tight. Even the material on the 3's handle on the steering wheel, where you put your hands, the grippiness of it, it's really like a Momo steering wheel a little bit, that you'd find in a Porsche or another sports car. It's tighter. It's a smaller circumference. It grips well. And in its tightest setting, right, in the display, it's tighter than the tightest setting in the S. It's definitely sports car versus luxury sedan, which I'll get to in a moment. The too many stalks. There's 4 stalks total on the Model S. There's 3 in the 3. Oh, sorry, there's 2 in the 3. Now, granted, one of the ones in the S is just for adjusting the steering wheel. So you do that. You don't do that very often. But it's so nice to be able to do those type of things on the touch screen, in other words, in the computer, so to speak, of the Model 3. Same with the side view mirrors. The side view mirrors is you have to push a button, and then this is the left mirror, this is the right mirror. In the Model S and the 3, it's all done touch screen, just like the steering wheel. That's such a cleaner, better way. And that the autopilot is done with the same stalk as reverse and drive and neutral. whereas in the S, it's a separate one. I suspect all that's going to be upgraded in the refresh coming theoretically end of next year or 2020. But I'm talking about where it is now, and it going from the 3 to the S, and then from the S back to the 3. It definitely felt like in some of these issues, downgrade and then an upgrade, like older versus newer. I'm going to an older version to a newer version. So the instrument cluster. So actually, let me just say it this way, because this idea will cover a lot of the little ones I'm talking about, which is that I personally am a minimalist almost to an extreme. I love minimalist. I don't have a lot of things. I get rid of things when I buy something new. I get rid of the old. I don't like clutter. I don't have books, CDs. I barely have any paper in my house. Everything's digital. Sometimes I think I was born 20 years too late. I just like my house, my cars, my everything is as much as possible minimalist. And that's me. Other people feel differently. It's too cold. It's not warm enough. There's not enough. Totally understand. But for my taste, the 3 is perfect. In fact, I'd probably make it more minimalist. I don't even know how to make it more minimalist, but I'd make it even more minimalist. Like, I don't know where exactly, but the 3 is for sure not too minimalist for me. And the S is, compared to the 3, just way too much going on. It's way too much buttons. And I mean, they're not really buttons, but just the screen in the center. You got the handlebars physical. You have the side view mirror adjustments physical. You got 4 stalks, adjusting the steering wheels physical. Just too much going on. And the 3 is just, like I'll give you an example. You know where I would like minimalism more on the 3? Not that that's part of the comparison, but the Saabs used to have a dark mode. And one press of a button, everything would go dark except your primary instruments, which would be like your speedometer. And I can't remember if it was the RPM would or wouldn't, because it was a stick. But either way, it was just, and I wish that they would have that on the 3, that option. I already put the screen all the way to the lowest setting when it's nighttime. And if they could have a dark where all you would see is the speedometer and maybe emergency, or I guess the autopilot stuff, the stuff in the, the left quarter, if you will, of the screen. And even if you could darken that more, and just you and the driver. Like, one of the greatest things about the 3 is, in fact, that there's no center console. People have talked about they'd love to have heads-up display. I've seen people on YouTube buy like cell phone holders and put them in the middle to make it act like, I'm like, oh my God, that's the worst thing you could do, right? That's like putting tchotchkes in like a modern house. It's like, oh my God, get out of that. I don't want anything but me and the steering wheel, if you will, and the road, and then one pedal driving, which is fantastic. And that's it. Then it's pure driving experience. If I need to know the speed, I'll just glance over there and I'll know what it is. No problem. Okay. So anyway, the point is that for me, even the S, the current version, obviously is too much. Now the S, compared to other cars, is like minimalist, which is one of the great things I liked about it when I first test drove it, and been following Tesla. So a lot of stuff I'm telling you is on the minimalist side. So let me see what else I have here. Instrument cluster, all that. Even the center console, there's, like, in my view, too many lines and angles. The 3 could probably be cleaned up a little bit, but it's better than the S. I do. Okay, so let me talk about the big things. Well, let me just say this. Obviously, the 3 is newer technology, has newer batteries. It has track mode. Doesn't have ludicrous, though, but it does have track mode. And again, the track mode, I suspect, is purely software. I don't think there's anything mechanical or missing components in the 3 that wouldn't allow Tesla to do an update over the air that will unlock something, or have this certain it's not that you're unlocking, but this track mode settings. I'm sure they can do that, just like that the 3 can get ludicrous. That's, I think, purely just software. The batteries aren't, though. So, and again, I'm talking about the current, where it is today. This is November 2018. But let me talk about the biggest thing. So the biggest difference for me was and is the handling. And that was the biggest letdown when I went into the S, especially because when I test drove the S years ago, it was unbelievable. And I was coming from a Mercedes E-Class at the time, which is no slouch, but it's like, wow, this is incredible. But having the 3 performance and always having it in sport mode, or the steering wheel in sport mode, I think that's very important. And having the regen on max, I'm sure most people, or standard, I guess most people do that too, probably. That's important. So having it in the current version, at least, of the 3P, dual motor 3P, in its most like sporting mode, compared to the 75D, night and day. And I'm sure the P100D, it's quicker off the line, 0 to 60, it's faster than the Model 3. But I don't think the handling is much different. And I had the suspension in the most, the air suspension low, all that, everything I possibly could in the settings. It's just a boat compared to a sports car in comparison. And that to me was the big, I mean, I could not, I'm telling you, I was excited to have the S. It's a beautiful car. It's a beautiful car to pull up. I'm in the financial business, and you pull up in this nice long or elongated sedan, that is in that class of a 7 Series and an S-Class Mercedes. It's a nice thing. A lot very roomy. I forgot to mention that. It's more roomy. It's nice. Nice to be taking people along, going out for a nice dinner with the wife. But man, I'm telling you guys, I could not wait to get back to my 3. I was like every day, texting Tesla. Maybe not every day, but I was really looking at my text because that's how we communicated. And I was hoping I'd get it before Thanksgiving. And then I didn't get it Thanksgiving. And I thought, it's going to be Monday. But then they texted me in the morning on Friday and said it's ready. I was so excited. And when I got back in that car to be able to just, the handling on that 3 is amazing. It is, it's akin to a Porsche. Now, I wouldn't say it is in the normal non-track mode, not on the track. I believe a Porsche, I haven't been in a Porsche in a long time, but I'm sure a Porsche is better in handling and performance and around the corners and all that than the stock Model 3, even in its, tight steering, max regen mode. We've all seen the videos on the track mode and how it compares, but we're not going to drive it in track mode. But I can tell you, for me, in terms of cars I've owned, actually probably even cars I've driven, if my memory serves better, there has never been a better handling car I've been in, with the low center of gravity, with the batteries, again, with all the steering. Steering is such an important part of handling. I can't overcome crappy dynamics and crappy suspension and crappy tires. But if everything else is kind of equal, roughly, between two cars, and you have a better steering feel, it changes everything in terms of your the way it feels when you're handling. And a big misconception, I don't know if it's a big misconception, but one that I come across a lot is when they talk about performance, it's always 0 to 60. And maybe because I was born and raised in Germany, it's important. It's a number we quote as well, 0 to 100 kilometers. But that's not what we really mean when we say this car is faster and quicker. Faster and quicker isn't just 0 to 60 or even quarter mile or some other straight line, or frankly, not even around the track. It's quicker is like how it feels. Because if no one used a stopwatch, could you really tell the difference between 3.5 and 3.3? Maybe some of you can. I don't know if I could. Now, between 4 seconds and 3, probably. But the question is, if you didn't look at the speedometer and you didn't time something and you went around a nice road in your area that's, not too heavily trafficked, that's maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, curvy roads, and you took 3, 4, 5 different cars and you never checked the speedometer and you never checked your timing, you just then had a gut reaction, kind of an impression when it was all over, which car was more fun, which had better handling, which put a smile on your face. That's what I'm saying when it's like handling. So I can't give you metrics. I'm not a professional car driver. But I'm telling you, for me, the Model 3 wasn't even close to the Model S in terms. I should maybe phrase it differently, but the Model 3 was vastly superior for me in the driving pleasure, and that was the big takeaway. That really surprised me. I expected it's a lighter car, it's a smaller car, it is newer. I'm sure they have certain things they've done in there that's an upgrade, but I didn't expect that big of a difference. It was, again, I'm not worried about the 0 to 60 so much. I still think the 3 was quicker. I didn't time it, but I felt it. So yeah, I can tell that the Model 3P is better, in my view, than a 75D in terms of 0 to 60. That's not what I was concerned about, though. I was just talking about fun to drive. It's tight, it's quick, it moves. It's responsive. It was amazing. So in summation, I should say, the two big takeaways for me between the two, the reason I really love the Model 3P better for me was this whole rant I just went on was about the performance, the driving performance, driving behavior. Maybe performance is even the wrong word, the behavior of the way it drives. It's like, what's better, a Mercedes S-Class or a Porsche 911? Well, I don't know. What do you want? It's not about just measuring, horsepower or Newton torque. It's like when you get in it and drive it, which one do you want? What do you want on this given day? So that's what I want. It's not better or worse, but for me, it was an improvement. And then the other one, though, so performance. The other one was just the design of it. I do like, again, the larger look of the S, but that comes with the price of the performance, or at least that's part of the reason. And that's what I meant to mention earlier. The air suspension, the reason I have dual feelings about that is because I don't know how much the air suspension contributes to the lesser performance and value. Maybe none of it. Maybe that's not the issue. But I suspect that perhaps the air suspension has some negative effect on the performance, whereas the 3 is a mechanical suspension, if you will. And then the design. The interior, but that's all stuff can be fixed. But the interior design, I really loved getting into my 3. I love the white seats, the black trim. It's spaceship-like, and it's clean. It's elegant. It's simple. It's minimalist. It's calming. It's just, man, I can't tell you how beautiful that car is. So that was my thoughts. They are, in fact, just impressions, just thoughts. With the very same experience and the same facts, many of you, if not most of you, can come to the opposite conclusion. And I totally understand that. Just giving you my sense about the 3. I was, to phrase it in a more positive light, I was very, very, with the experience of driving both, I was very impressed with the 3 and very pleasantly surprised on how great the 3 handled, not handled, but compared to the Model S, especially when the price difference is so large now. And the Model P is very expensive, to be honest with you. It's a high-end mid-range, in my view. I mean, $83,000 with the base. Meaning without the credits and all that stuff. Just that's how much you initially have to fork out. It's a lot of money, but it's wow. So there you have it, and wish you pleasant days and long nights.